let's start with you. How much traction do you see this second pay-as-you-go carrier getting? Is this a way for Sprint to sell more iPhones when it's really been struggling to do so?
No, there's no question. I mean, there's a bunch of things that are going on that are really interesting. One, obviously, is the entire industry is kind of reaching some saturation on what this great euphemism they call post-paid, which is to say people who can get credit in advance and then have to pay the bill later. So that there's a sense out there that the industry, the post-paid side of the industry, has really slowed down, maybe even flatlining. So to get any growth, it's all in the prepaid side of things, which is great if you're a drug dealer. You can get an iPhone. I mean, it's fabulous if you're south of the wire. They live by this stuff. So there's that. But that's where all the growth is. The growth are in people who can't get credit, which is partly a reflection of the economy and partly a reflection of the industry. And the last point on that's really important to keep in mind is we're now coming down. The people who are getting hurt by this are who were formerly the low-end providers of prepaid plans, people like Metro PCS and others. And so there's a whole bunch of moving parts to this, some having to do with the industry, some having to do with the changing nature of pre- and post-paid.
Joe, what's your take on Apple's push into this market? What does it actually mean?
Well, look, anybody would sell iPhones if they could. They're a guaranteed moneymaker. I mean, the hot dog vendor on the street would sell them if Apple would let them. It's not about Apple trying to get more people to sell them. They have as many people to sell as they want. What this is it's about Apple moving product. Because Apple, sure, they sell a ton of iPhones, but they're trying to sell as many as possible before their next product release. I mean, and to me that means they're trying to make as much money as possible on their manufacturing tooling. You know, the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 4S are almost identical twins. The front panel, the back panel, the buttons and the switches are all identical. To me, this signals a huge hardware shift. So that means coming up, we're not going to see an iPhone 5 that looks like a 4 or a 4S. It's going to be a completely new form factor for me, and this is Apple getting as many of the old products out as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, you know, because in the past that was one of the reasons why there wasn't as much incentive. If you really want to move inventory out, this is the way to really move inventory out if the tooling, the manufacturing tooling that's used before is no longer going to be useful.
Paul, you heard Corey's comment earlier. Do you think Apple is over-dependent on the iPhone?
I'd like to have that problem. You know, I think almost everyone in the industry would like to have that problem. So they are, but that is only going to become a problem when it becomes a problem. And right up until then, it is the single best rocket for them to ride, and they should exploit it as aggressively as they can, which is exactly what they're doing. The only problem for them comes in is when they have to do the transitions, and which is like iPhone 4 to 5. If there's a tooling transition as well as a product transition, big problems for them if they don't move inventory out now.
Joe, what are you expecting to hear at the developers conference next week? Will we get any clues about iPhone 5? Will we see iPhone 5?
No. I don't think we're going to see iPhone 5 until late September or early October. I mean, Apple is like a clock. We see a new product from them first week of October every year. I'll bet you $5 it's October 2nd because they love Tuesdays, and that's the first week of October. At WWDC, we're expecting to see a big overhaul for iOS 6, and if we're lucky, that might actually give us some clues about the hardware, like we were able to see with iOS 5. Like you mentioned before, Facebook integration, definitely. We're going to see maybe some streamlining of the notification system, which have been kind of a sticky point for a lot of people. And then I'm hoping also, we're really hoping for new MacBook Pros. People like me who are on the go a lot and need a powerful machine, that's what we're expecting to see.
Now, Paul, what's interesting is we're seeing, you know, that Apple's going to be making moves to distance itself from Google and yet move more close to Facebook. What's your take on that?
I don't think they really had any choice. I mean, this was only a matter of time. The sharing of content on the platform and having content sharing wired into the platform, the idea that, you know, I'm reading or consuming something, whether it's on the web or in one of my clients on the phone, and I can immediately share it and have that wired into the phone is so important now. You know, we see this with all kinds of content right down to the Bloomberg.com website. Everything's shareable and needs to be shareable immediately. So, you know, the two big sharing platforms are Twitter and Facebook, and it was an obvious absence. And I'm assuming it was just a matter of, you know, negotiating a deal that worked for both sides, and it wasn't that there was ever any question about it happening if it could happen.
Joe, what about the punches that Apple is throwing at Google? What's your read on this? How effective is it going to be?
I think it's going to be hugely effective. I mean, if you look at Apple and Google, they're in kind of two completely different camps. Google owns the web. Apple is a company that is based around hardware-specific situations. You know, they have an app store on both their computers and on their phones, and that means you're getting people searching for information and accessing information off the web. That's also what Facebook tries to do. They don't want you searching for Emily Chang on Google. They want you searching for Emily Chang on Facebook. And so, you know, this is a bet that Apple's making right now in terms of Facebook, that Facebook is going to own the web or own the internet for the next 5 to 10 years, and I think they're right on with that. But it's also, you know, the Google Maps API, that's what allowed Apple to build that very popular app that was built in. But Apple has now been apparently developing their own app in-house, and I'm looking forward to be pretty awesome. And that's the whole reason behind Google's mapping announcement last week. I mean, just call a spade a spade. They were preemptively striking against what Apple's going to have. They don't know what Apple's going to have, but they're scared of it.